be rich, don't wanna be popular, don't wanna be selfish, no. I don't wanna be a goat, don't wanna be ignorant, don't wanna be blindfolded, I just wanna be countercultural. I don't wanna be violent, don't wanna have a vendetta, don't wanna be vengeful, no. I don't wanna be a soldier, don't wanna be militaristic, don't wanna help that cycle, I just wanna be a countercultural pacifist. I don't wanna be a racist, don't wanna be a capitalist, don't wanna be sexist, no. I don't wanna pass judgment, don't wanna hold grudges, don't wanna be hateful, I just wanna be a countercultural, pacifistic, unconditional lover.
The February edition of Brethren Voices, Going Beyond the Walls, featured the Arlington Church of the Brethren and its ministry to the community directly to the west of our nation's capital. Hello, this is Brethren Voices, and I'm Brent Carlson. In that program, we discussed some of the new technology that is being used to reach out to the community of Arlington, Virginia. The pastor, Nancy Fitzgerald, shared a little about the Dunkard Punks podcast. For my generation, I was caught a little off guard with the mention of the term podcast. I don't know what a podcast is. And I certainly wasn't up to date on the Dunkard Punks. When I grew up, if you called somebody a punk, you're liable to get hit or slapped.
And so using different social medias, we got more involved. And then came the idea of the podcast. After National Youth Conference, when Jarrod McKenna did his sermon and called the kids, "You're just a bunch of Dunkard punks."
Of course, I'm talking about what that was so central to Anna Margaret Mack and Alexander Mack. Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount ends with these words. So where are we? Chapter 7, verse 24. Those who hear these words of mine and do what? Put them into practice are like a wise person who builds their house upon a... Now, I don't know what you've heard in different preaching about what we're to build our house upon. I've heard a lot of stuff of our understanding of the cross or our understanding of what happens at the end. But Jesus concludes, here's what discipleship is. And he sums it up by saying, if you do this, you're like what? A wise person. Do you know Gandhi spent an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening meditating on the Sermon on the Mount? Do you know Gandhi could recite all 3 chapters from memory? Gandhi, of course, was he Christian? Gandhi was a what? Gandhi said things like, I like your Christ, but not you Christians. You Christians are nothing like your Christ. Ooh. And it's not that Gandhi couldn't find Christians that took Jesus seriously. He just couldn't find Christians that took Jesus as seriously as he did. Gandhi was asked over and over and over again what was central to his revolution in India. He always answered the Bhagavad Gita and Jesus and his Sermon on the Mount. Now you mob, you brethren mob, this is the genesis. This is built into the DNA of the genesis of your movement, the Sermon on the Mount. Out of interest, who knows the Sermon on the Mount off by heart? Yeah, I'm struggling to get there as well. Here's the thing though, what Kai and I are interested in and why we're learning from your tradition is this early mob did. This early mob, the Dunkers as they were called. You've heard that term before? Let's start with another definition. Punk, a young person, especially a member of a rebellious countercultural group. That's what your early movement was. Dunkers, a movement starting in 1708 in Germany with Anna Margaret Mack, Alexander Mack, and 6 others that were a creative, courageous, compassionate fusion of Anabaptism and radical pietism. That's what we're learning from you mob, but you mob often don't know the gift that you've been given. So what I want to do with the rest of my time is I want to tell a little bit of a story about what it might look like to actually become a Dunker Punk. Because you can be Church of Brethren and people ask you questions like, oh, Gingrich, that's a good Church of the Brethren name, but Dunker Punks know that Rodriguez and Johnson and Chang are good Dunker Punk names too.
I mean, I call it's a Holy Spirit thing because I got the idea that podcasts are where the young adult generation and youth generation are going for information. I mean, I don't listen to regular news anymore. I use an app and listen to the podcast. So wouldn't people a lot younger than me be doing that and more? So we put together the idea of a podcast targeted at youth and young adults, but open, of course, to anyone, and it's just blossomed.
And the name Dunkard Punks, which came from that youth camp sermon,
It did.
has stuck.
It really stuck. Emmett Elred, he coined the website, dunkerpunks.com. So he was the first person I talked to at annual conference after an insight session. I went up to him and said, what do you think of the idea of a podcast? He goes, I'm all about it. So we had several people instantly interested. So he said okay with the name, and we've linked to each other's sites. So the dunkerpunks.com has essays, and you can fill out profiles, and you can link and find your way to our podcast. But of course, just using the podcast app on your phone or Stitcher is the easiest way.
To put his words into action, the Arlington Brethren put together a team and created the Dunkard Punk Podcast. We met with the communications minister, Suzanne to find out how the podcasts are put together and where to find them. Some of you may already guess. They're on the internet.
We have about a dozen young adults from across the country and across the denomination.
Not just Arlington.
Not just Arlington.
Across the country. Oh.
Yeah. So we have some here, some in local in DC, but yeah, across the country, and they each pick a general topic they want to focus on, and take turns producing audio about it. And each piece of audio they produce is a show that Pastor Nancy hosts, and she adds a sermon, a blessing, a prayer, or a call to action, and we post it 2 times a week. We're hoping to reach people who maybe they're off at college, maybe they're not affiliated with the church, and this is a way that they can stay connected, or maybe they are really involved in church, and this is a conversation starter for them.
So do you do 2 programs a month?
2 separate programs, that's right.
2 separate programs.
Mm-hmm.
Are they, can anybody just check in and find them and listen to them?
Yeah, so they stream on the website. You can go to the show page and just click play right there, and you'll hear it.
You're the person who puts that podcast together. Do you put it together right here at church? Do you have an office and a little studio or something?
No, that'd be awesome, but we don't. The audio starts with each contributor. Okay. So they maybe do an interview, some do more of a sermon style. Some have done some really fun episodes where they interview 10 or more people, and then they slice it up on their home computer, and they'll send their audio file to us, and then and we'll give it a listen. Pastor Nancy will give it some thought and a framing. So then she does that on her own audio that she records. Most folks are recording just on their computers, maybe on their smartphones. Some of them are really savvy with our, audio technology, and they have more sophisticated equipment. So that all varies, but the 2 pieces come together by either myself or Jacob Kraus, he's at Washington City Church of the Brethren. And we take turns editing the audio, and we put in his amazing theme song.
So for those of us who may not know all about search engines and things like that, so how does somebody find the podcast and access it?
So there's 2 good ways. One is right from the website. You can go...
And the website is the arlingtoncob.org.
That's right.
Okay.
There are links from our homepage. or you can go to arlingtoncob.org/DPP, and that'll take you right to the page where you can click play. The other way would be to go through iTunes. Yeah, or another podcast service provider. And that's a really awesome way because you can subscribe and it'll be sent to either your phone or your computer depending on what device you subscribe on. Yeah, so each
Free of
time
charge?
the show comes. Yeah, they're really small files, so it won't even take much data to download. So that way you can listen to it when you're not connected to Wi-Fi or internet if you're on the go. You can put it on a iPod or an MP3
Driving
player.
down the street, huh?
Yeah.
How do you decide what's going to be the topic? Do you just, people are kind of inspired to do whatever they do, or do you set some guidelines or ask for something about this and that?
Mostly they decide. Sometimes we'll talk it through, brainstorm something that might be interesting. But the general guideline is that it's inspired by their walk on the Jesus way. So it's encouraging in that kind of way, and we really let them speak from what's on their heart because it's, as much theirs as it is ours.
Laura Weimer of the Arlington Church of the Brethren is one of the contributors for the Dunker podcast.
They asked if I would be interested and willing to, provide audio and be a contributor for the podcast, and it sounded interesting to me, so I decided it would be cool to do something that, our church is really instrumental in getting off the ground.
And did they give you a theme?
Not necessarily. It's fairly open-ended. You can really, contributors talk about, their own experiences or things that they're passionate about, so you really can take it any direction you want to.
How many times have you been a contributor?
So actually only once so far. We rotate, so I think the last one I did was in summer, maybe around July, and then I'm going to be doing another one really soon. So I think maybe about 6 months or so.
Okay. What did you talk about in June?
In my first one, I talked about re-entry into society after incarceration. So that's something I'm really interested in, is the criminal justice system and, recidivism rates and things like that. So I interviewed the director of a local nonprofit, OAR, Offender Aid and Restoration, and they help people coming out of jail and people involved in the criminal justice system. So I interviewed her just so she could sort of teach people a little bit about some of the problems that are occurring and then things people can do about it.
So that simply was something you were interested in personally, and you decided to share it on the audio podcast. And and Nancy and Suzanne said, yeah, that's good. We'll use it?
Yeah. I mean, they're very open to really wanting people to explore their own interests and, things that they are already involved in. And so I, did it just sort of let Suzanne know, this is the topic I'm interested in, and she thought it sounded great. And so, I just did it.
Did you have fun doing it?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, it was fun to be able to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, and then be able to share it, with my church community, but also the broader church community as a whole.
So, did you go back and listen to it?
I did.
Did you learn anything about yourself as an interviewer?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it flowed a lot better than I was expecting. I had sent her some questions beforehand that I was going to ask, but, we sort of talked about it a little bit beforehand, but she was a really great speaker and she was really eloquent, so that definitely helped. But I think things flowed really well.
How did you record it? Did you have special equipment, or?
Well, I actually just brought my laptop computer, and then I also brought my phone, and I recorded it on both just in case one got messed up, just with a
and it worked
normal
just fine?
Yeah, I mean, the audio it wouldn't be professional quality by any means, but I think it would, for this context, I think it worked out.
Good. What's going to be the theme on the next one?
So that's a good question. I'm still sort of figuring it out, but since I'm applying to social work programs, I'm I think I'm going to be looking and exploring the social work values, like the principles of like justice and serving the oppressed and things like that. So sort of looking at the social work values in parallel to Church of the Brethren and Christian values. And I'm hoping to interview Suzanne, who's one of the people instrumental in this podcast, who's also a social worker. So I'm hoping to interview her.
Oh, you're going to interview the director of the podcast.
I am. Yeah,
Does
I
she
turn
know
the
that?
tables. Yes, I did. She does. She does. I mean, so I think if all goes well, that's the plan.
Yeah, what a great idea. I'm glad you're doing that. And you're starting to think ahead about what kind of message can I share next.
Yeah. Like, I think it's great that the podcast, people from the church are contributing, but also people all over the country and all over the denomination. So I think it's really exciting that people are, getting interested and getting involved, and people are listening, because the topics are always different. So there's always something for everybody and something new.
Wonderful. You were born and raised in the church. So,
yes.
So I don't know if you have experience with other denominations, but what do you really appreciate and cherish in the Church of the Brethren?
I mean, what I really appreciate is I think people using their faith and using it in positive ways to help other people and to sort of lift up others. And I mean, I know a big thing, at least in our congregation, is service. And so really using the beliefs and like teachings and, things that we've learned all throughout Sunday school and church and putting them into everyday practice.
The podcasts are enjoyed by members of the Arlington Church and Dunker punks across the nation, as well as many others of all ages, including people who are curious about this new generation, just like me.
Sure. So we're really excited about the podcast. We see it as a ministry outside our walls, especially nowadays. Being in the world can feel so isolating, and I know for me, I went to graduate school in Atlanta, I went to grad school in Fredericksburg, and during those times I felt really disconnected from the church. The podcast is really a way for us to connect to people who maybe don't have a home congregation where they are, who maybe aren't feeling as connected to, brethren or even their Christian values in general, and it's kind of like a little ray of hope and a connection point for them. And so we're really excited about expanding it and seeing how we can keep it growing. So one of the ways that we're working on that is we're building a curriculum. So we've been thinking about a curriculum in a couple of different ways. We are lucky enough here at Arlington Church of the Brethren to have monthly young adult gatherings, and we use young adult loosely. It's anyone basically from college age up to, mid to late 40s. So it's like very loose in our young adults.
I think you need to go a little higher.
We can go higher. We can go higher, but it's we have these gatherings where we get together and we have soup and we have fellowship and we talk about anything. So sometimes we talk about scripture, sometimes we talk about the news, sometimes we talk about social justice issues, and it's really a chance for us to dig in and have these moments of calm and fellowship and really feel restored. Sometimes it's hard in the world to feel that way, and so
particularly on days like this.
Particularly on days like this. So when we think about curriculum, we're really thinking about ways that we can use the podcast and help other people get that same feeling that we have on, every month here when we gather together. So really a way to take people through that time and through questions and give them something they can dive into together, bond over together, and hopefully come away, feeling what we feel when we leave nights like this.
As a listener to the podcast, do you find them interesting, and do you find that you can relate to the things that people are talking about?
Oh, absolutely. I know a lot of times like I said, I listen to them on the metro when I'm going to work, and I'll find myself typing a note on my phone like, I've got to remember that exact line so I can tweet it out when I get to work, because I don't have signal underground on the metro. But I definitely relate to them, and it's a whole host of different topics. And I think that's really what makes it so relatable. Also, you're hearing from a whole host of different voices and different perspectives, and just hearing so many different young adults and young people in the church who are grappling with issues and trying to look at both sides and living in the world and living their Christian values in the world. I think it's a quiet, peaceful moment sometimes, and sometimes it's energizing. I just want to get out there and, change the world. And sometimes it's really meditative, and, you find yourself going through a guided prayer and you happen to be riding the Orange Line that day.
So the people who are doing, the contributors are really doing topics that relate to people and their spiritual journey and the challenges of living in this world as a Christian.
Absolutely.
Okay. The podcast is something you can listen to directly from the internet and streaming or something like that. Or you can download it to a computer or an iPad, I suppose, and listen to it while you're commuting or while you're jogging or walking or something independent of the computer and the internet. Right?
Yep.
But of course, you
Yep.
can.
And we can also download the podcast to CDs. We're planning on playing a podcast for our whole congregation here in a couple weeks, just to make sure even those who can't download a podcast or don't have a smartphone get to hear some of the great information and great work we're doing.
And if you're putting it on a CD, then you can put the curriculum, like the information manual that comes with instructions for the music or whatever the program is. Melody, what's the future of the podcast? Are you looking, what would you like to do, or what are you thinking about in terms of expanding? Do you have something in mind?
So we're actually working so I work with Pastor Nancy and Suzanne on this curriculum, and the other thing we're working on is sponsorships for the podcast. So our hope is to get the podcast sponsored and supported so that every one of our contributors can be paid for their work the same way that a guest preacher would be paid when they come and give a mission or or a sermon to a congregation. So that's really the important next step for us. I think at first we had to get off the ground and we wanted to see if there was appetite for the podcast, and I think that we found that there really is. It is relatable. And so our next mission is to make sure that everyone who contributes is getting paid for the mission and the work that they're doing. So.
Good. I'm very curious about how the curriculum would work and what it would be, because the pastor explained that she tries to leave the listener with a question and a scriptural basis for some food for thought.
Sure. We thought we'd start with youth groups. So the podcasts are easy for you to listen to on your own. I listen to them when I'm riding the metro into work. But we thought it would be a good tool for youth groups to get together and listen. Maybe they wouldn't make it all the way through the podcast on their own, but a curriculum would help a teacher be able to, take the guiding scripture, read the scripture, listen to the audio together in a group, and have some guiding questions beyond just that one question that, the host gives at the end or beginning of the podcast. And it would also provide deeper dive information. So one of the most recent topics was on voting in the Church of the Brethren, the early Church of the Brethren thought that, maybe we shouldn't vote. Some people still believe that. Some people are very passionate and think that voting is a big part of social justice. And so there was a recent podcast that debated that. So the deeper dive would have more articles, past church writings on the topic that you could read more into and discover as if that topic really spoke to you in your youth group.
We're going to try to go on the internet and find Dunker Punks and see if it works. When I tried this before, it was pretty easy, so hopefully it'll be easy. And anybody can do it. We click on dunkerpunks.com and we get the home page. Across the top of the home page, actually kind of in a third of the way up, you've got a number of choices. Home, about, blog. Do you know what a blog is? Podcasts, action, projects, punks, Join, contact, and links. So we're going to go to podcasts because that's what we're looking for. We click on podcasts and we get the Dunker Punks logo, which is this little pigeon with the headphones on and a heart. And then we scroll down a little bit and we find click here to listen to the podcast. Right there, and it's highlighted in red. When you put your little cursor over it, it turns gray. We do that. And look at, we found Arlington Church of the Brethren, Dunker Punks podcast. There's 31 episodes available. Going back to the first one is Be the Peace, and the last one, the 31st one, is Bienvenue. I think you're going to find them all very interesting. They're intimate, they're personal, they're sharing their thoughts and feelings of the people who have contributed, and sometimes interviews with other people. And each one is highlighted by a spiritual comment by Nancy Fitzgerald, referring to what the Bible has to say about the different subjects that are covered in the podcast episodes. So who are the Dunker Punks? They are youth, young adults, and the youthful in spirit. They are leaders to one another and followers of Jesus. They are radical, nonconformists, united, diverse, and nonviolent. They study together, pray together, and struggle together. They love first and ask questions later. They are set apart in love, service, study, obedience, and peace. Dunker Punks, following Jesus, peacefully, simply, together. Thank you for joining us for Brethren Voices. This is Brent Carlson, wishing you peace.
I don't want to shop at Walmart, don't want to grow Monsanto, don't want to drink Coca-Cola, no. I don't want to burn petrol, don't want to eat perfect fruit, don't want to feel guilty, I just want to be a countercultural, pacifistic, unconditionally loving organic gardener. I want to be authentic, I want to be radical, I want to be optimistic, honest, beautiful, I want to be humble, I want to be progressive, I want to be open, an inspiration, I want to be like John Wesley, or Sarah Major, or Hannah Mao, I want to be like Martin Luther, or Martin Luther King Jr., like Santa Claus, Johnny Appleseed, Dirk Berlin, or Gandhi, Alexander Mack, John Klein, George Fox, or Jesus Christ, but mostly, I just want to be me. I just want to be me.